Hi, this is Joseph Williams, son of John Williams, and you are watching the Nerf Herder Council.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another Watch Along on the Nerf Herder Council. I am your host, AJ, one half of the usual Nerf Herder Council team. My brother, JT, is usually alongside me here, but we're doing a little catch-up tonight. We are in part 2 of our Loki Season 1 Watch Along because this is Deadpool and Wolverine week. And if you haven't seen the trailers, you'll notice that there's a lot of multiverse shenanigans going on in this movie coming up. So we figured it'd be a good time to take a step back, watch the TV series from Disney Plus that began the Multiverse Saga and really launched all this stuff. So we know what's going on when we're heading into the movie theater in just about 48 hours now. I've got my tickets for 8 p.m. on Thursday. So we are counting down the hours at this point, not just the days, and really looking forward to this new Deadpool movie. It's going to be amazing, and can't wait to see it. But we got through episodes 1 and 2 of Loki last night. And tonight we're going to be getting through episodes 3 and 4. And then we'll wrap up tomorrow night with a later stream, and we'll get 5 and 6 done to wrap up that first season of Loki. Now, for those of you who are new to the show, usually the Nerf Herder Council goes live every other Wednesday on all the popular platforms. We've got our Facebook page. We've got our YouTube channel. We've got our Twitch page. And we've also got Patreon. So you can also find us at patreon.com/NHC podcast. We are streaming there live now from now on as well. And you don't have to pay any money, but it is the best place to stay up to date with the show and know what's coming up and when with the show. So, for example, we are going to be live next Wednesday with our regularly scheduled broadcast with my brother and I. And we are going to be covering Deadpool and Wolverine in its entirety, full spoilers and all. So this is your chance to get caught up on the first 2 movies and buy your tickets for the third one, because by next Wednesday we'll be talking all about it, and the gloves are off. No spoiler is too spoilery. So get yourself ready for that show and tune in to the exact same platform you're finding this show here tonight, and we'll talk all things Deadpool. This is a live watch along, but the show itself will not actually be on the screen, of course, due to copyright. So fire up your copy of Disney Plus. I've got episode 3 queued up and ready to go at the 000 timestamp. And we'll get caught up on this stuff. Obviously, there's a nice little recapper at the beginning of the episode telling us what we already saw on our rewatch last night of episodes 1 and 2. And we'll get all set with that. So go ahead and get a second browser tab going, whatever you need to do. Fire up that Disney Plus, get Loki ready to go, and we will be doing this watch along here in short order. A couple of things to pay attention to tonight. I think this couple of episodes here in the show really kind of set the groundwork and get people familiar with the concept of different timelines and variants and things like that. With the variant that's being hunted by our Loki from 2012 Avengers 1, by that guy finally encountering his variant. And finding out that the variant not only does not like to go by the name Loki, but also is not Tom Hiddleston. So it's basically anybody is fair game to be a variant in the Marvel multiverse, which, if you ask my brother, makes it complete dog shit. So it depends on where you come down on these sorts of things. I think it was a backdoor way to kind of introduce the idea of recasting down the road, given that the MCU has been going since 2008 at this point. So it's 16 years in. You're not going to have these actors forever. So I see why they're going with storylines that allow them to recast parts over time. It just makes good sense. It's not a comic book, so you just can't write the same characters over and over and over again because human beings age, whereas drawings do not. So, all right, let's go ahead and get into this watch along here. Like I said, I've got this queued up, so you should be on season 1, episode 3 of Loki at the 000 timestamp. I'm going to give us a 3-second count in, and then we will begin this watch along here. All right, going in 3, 2, 1, and play. Yep, and here's the recap that we were all expecting. Previously on Loki. So I'm not sure how many people were tuned in last night, who are tuned in tonight, but I'm probably going to repeat myself in a few cases here because I think some points bear repeating. This being one of the first crop of Disney Marvel shows, they really pulled out all the stops. I feel like this first round with like Falcon and Winter Soldier, WandaVision, and Loki here, um, they really felt like they stood alongside the movies really well, like high production value. Maybe it was just the cameras they used or something, but just the shows looked like this. Like I said, they lived right alongside the movies. Whereas, a lot of the newer productions, and not just in Marvel, but in Disney in general on Disney Plus, they definitely tend to show their budget a little bit more. They're either a little bit too heavy on the volume, meaning the LCD stage, or unfortunately, with the pandemic and whatnot, a lot of productions had to be shifted around and filmed very differently to limit the number of people on set at a time, which limits the scope of what you can do. Lots of things, and we're all pretty familiar with the general missteps that the MCU has made since Endgame, which is a shame because this show I think actually did a great job alongside those other two of kicking off the Disney Plus phase of the Marvel universe. So to see what it's become, I'm really looking forward to Deadpool and Wolverine because it seems like maybe they've learned their lesson that quality is more important than quantity, and um, I think they're not afraid to pull back a little bit and steer away from this multiverse saga because it has not been received nearly as well as the Infinity Saga that came before. So hopefully it continues on that pace. I think Deadpool and Wolverine is going to be kind of like a righting of the ship, so to speak. I think we're going to get a good sense of what Marvel movies are going to be moving forward now that we're out of the COVID production era and out of the sheer Marvel gluttony of it all, right? Like 3 movies a year plus 2 or 3 Marvels. It was just too much. It was too much to sustain, and the storytelling suffered as a result. So let's just dive right into this episode here, back when, in the good old days when things were still fine. All right, so we've got Derp-faced TVA agent doing drinks with a person we don't know yet, but definitely the Loki variant. We're seeing the mind tricks here. Love it. See, a lot of people fell off with this show because they thought that it was going too much into the comics direction and away from the more grounded approach that the MCU had taken up to this point. And I know that's all relative based on, we've got a talking tree and a raccoon um, as far back as phase 2. But still, compared to the movies that came before, this definitely seems a little bit out there when you're starting to talk about, multiple timelines and variants and all that kind of stuff. But I think that this struck a good balance. This really does feel like a bridge to a different kind of Marvel storytelling. And I think that's fine actually. It's good to actually change things and try different stuff from time to time. So I don't begrudge this show at all for doing what it did. I think if anything, I think the problem was it kind of set everything up for failure afterwards because this set a very high bar for the quality. Kel McLeish, good to see you, buddy. Yeah, so do I need to know this stuff to see Deadpool and Wolverine? That's kind of the reason that we're watching all this stuff. If you've seen the trailers for Deadpool and Wolverine, there's a lot of mention of like, this is not your Wolverine or whatever. Um, and there's a lot of scenery in there that looks like it was introduced in this show, in this season specifically. So with all the multiverse stuff that's been going on in the movies, and it looks like Deadpool and Wolverine is going to work directly with all that stuff. This is where all that stuff was introduced. So if you're confused on the concept of timelines and multiverse and stuff like that, this is the show that you need to wrap your head around to make sense of all that. Nikki Bilski, what's up? Happy birthday, girl. Nice to see Loki playing with knives again. If there's one criticism I have of this show, it's that, especially being that they took the Loki from the first Avengers movie and not the Loki from Infinity War yeah, he died in Infinity War, I think. Yeah, Infinity War. Um, it feels like the Loki they got in the show is the one who experienced all that character growth through all the MCU movies and not the one that popped up for, I think, probably the second time only in Avengers, which I kind of get because he was, kind of a one-note villain in that movie. But in terms of continuity of the order of events, this guy shouldn't be acting like he's experienced all the stuff that Loki experienced through all the movies since that first Avengers movie back in 2012. I said it last night. I'll say it again. I love the production value of the show and the production design. Like the patterns of the hourglasses and the elevator doors and everything else. This show actually made beige okay. Usually the multiverse in Marvel is so colorful, and yet the TVA is so devoid of color. And it works. It's not boring to look at. A lot of these newer shows, I'm thinking more in lines of like Star Wars shows recently. A lot of the Star Wars shows go for a more desaturated palette because they're filming with better cameras that don't need so much light and all kinds of other technical reasons, but also just for like that greater sense of realism because life is not nearly as colorful as the movies that we've grown accustomed to. So I think in this case, the absence of color actually works very well because we're used to that hypercolor sort of MCU sheen. Now, unfortunately, I will say this is one of those episodes that I think for the most part, uh, they went a little bit crazy with the volume, the LCD stage. We get this wide shot here that's clearly all digital, uh, which I don't mind. It's an exterior shot. But there's a lot of times when the Lokis are walking around on this planet, and it, open sky just doesn't really look right. Maybe it's because it's purple and that's nothing that we're used to, so our minds already know there's something fake going on. But it is also very convenient that they're on this alien moon, and as we'll see in a while, the aliens are basically human. Very handy for the production budget that they didn't have to do a whole bunch of alien makeup. Kale, have you been texting with my brother? Because that's exactly why I'm the one doing the solo watch along. He tried to get into the first episode over the weekend, and as soon as there was a joke in the first episode about the Infinity Stones not working in the TVA, which is Time Variance Authority, by the way, it's basically an enforcing agency to make sure that the sacred timeline is maintained. Um, as soon as they made fun of the Infinity Stones because they didn't work at all in that realm, he was done. He's like, I watched too many movies, culminating because these are the greatest power in the universe, and to have them be completely unpowered and depowered in the next show, no. Which I kind of get, but as I said last night, if you're already up here at a fever pitch with Infinity War and Endgame, you can't start your next story up here. You've got to, go back down to the bottom and build it back up again with a different story and different stakes. And they kind of do both, if you think about it, because you don't have the Infinity Stones in this, so you don't have all those powers involved. But instead of like the entire universe being threatened, like Thanos wanted to do, like snapping half the universe out of existence, instead in this, it's a matter of timelines. And if you purge a timeline, that's an entire universe gone like that. And there are infinite timelines, so you're dealing with multiple universes being snuffed out of existence at a moment's notice. So it's both higher stakes while also removing the stakes of the last saga by the Infinity Stones not being in play anymore. So what we've got here, Kale, and anyone else who wasn't following along and is just tuning in now, this blonde female Loki is what they call a variant, meaning she is a Loki, but from a different timeline where events played out differently. Apparently, in this timeline, Loki was born female, or at least identifies as female. I don't know who's watching, so I want to be inclusive. Um, anyway, yeah, Lokis can be all different ages, all different races, all different creatures. Things get weirder as the show goes on, but just get used to the idea. Here's one of those volume shots, by the way, I was talking about, where this does not look like it's anywhere but on a soundstage and green screen like crazy. But anyway, yeah, so that's why we've got a blonde female Loki talking to the Loki that we know, because there's infinite different variations of Lokis based on the infinite number of timelines that can exist in the multiverse. And that ties into Deadpool and Wolverine because the trailers for Deadpool and Wolverine give the impression that Deadpool goes looking for Wolverine to help him in whatever he's got to do for the TVA. And apparently he gets like the worst of them, like the failure do nothing Wolverine instead of the hero Wolverine that he was hoping to go get. So I think that's going to be a big part of that movie is the fact that the Wolverine that we're following in the movie is not the one that Deadpool needs to complete his mission. Until he, of course, grows into that guy because that's how storytelling works. I wish I did know more about how these TV shows are made, though, because I mean the shots do look good. We know that they're digital and it's green screen, if not, LCD stage. Um, but I'm such a nerd for stuff like this. Like the fact that the sky is purple, and I'm wondering, like, what would that be like if light was all purple? Like, would these characters be lit like this, or would their color be different? Is this just like a digital tint that they're doing on the footage? I will say one thing that looks good in this episode with this alien moon, though, is this does remind me a lot of the aesthetics of like the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. So it definitely ties into the space-based movies that they've been doing in Marvel. But it is very handy that okay, so they're in the middle of an apocalypse, which again, catching anybody up who didn't see episodes 1 and 2. Um, the Time Variance Authority goes and hunts down and what they call prunes variant timelines to protect the sacred timeline. There's apparently like one flow of time that's supposed to happen, and occasionally people will make the wrong choice or events will unfold not as they're intended, and then the TVA has to jump onto that timeline and basically erase it from existence. And I forgot where I was going with that. This is what happens when I try to watch TV and talk at the same time. I lose my train of thought. Anyway, um, yeah, so pruning timelines and whatnot. I'll come back to that. I'm sure I'll remember what the hell I was saying in a few minutes. Um, yeah, if you've got any other comments, by the way, guys, as you're watching along here, go ahead and throw them in the chat. This is not just a monologue sort of thing, so definitely chime in, ask your questions, send your comments. Oh, right, about the apocalypses. So, yeah, so it's very handy for the storytelling and for the production budget that this moon is basically abandoned. Um, but at least there is a reason for it. The way the Time Variance Authority knows that a branch is occurring and they've been tracking down this female Loki variant is basically they can tell when something exists in a timeline that shouldn't. Now the way you can hide from them if you want to, like she's been doing, is you keep jumping to different apocalyptic events so that anything you do in that timeline doesn't matter because everything's going to die anyway. So you can't really alter anything because everything you do is going to be erased imminently anyway from whatever catastrophe is about to happen. So they tested the theory by, for example, by like jumping back to Pompeii, and then they, announced their presence and talked about the TVA and let some goats loose and yelled at the villagers, and it didn't matter because then the volcano erupted and killed everybody anyway. So no harm, no foul. Basically the premise. Here's all these aliens as we're seeing here. So they're on an apocalyptic planet or a moon rather. No, I think it's a planet and the moon's about to crash into the planet. I think that's what's going on. But anyway, that's why there's not a ton of people here. I do have a couple questions about Loki abilities. So she can like read minds and possess people. I think Loki can too. But he just, was able to change his clothes no problem. So why couldn't she? If they both pose as guards, they can get on the train no problem. Yeah, there you go. See? Why don't you just touch him on the shoulder too? It'd be so much easier. So you know how at Universal they've got the Harry Potter world and they've got the Hogwarts Express. I kind of wish they had like a Marvel world and I could ride on this train. It just looks like fun, especially because there's a bar right in the middle of it. Hey, look, there's our thumbnail. Yay. And now we get the character exposition and info dump. We'll say it's not the most stylish thing, but that turtleneck that Loki's wearing there probably very comfortable in winter. This does raise some real weird philosophical questions, doesn't it? Because there's so many factors that can vary and have the person still be a Loki. It kind of makes you wonder, like, what is the constant? Like, if we were in a multiverse, for example, like, how different could you turn out and still be you? Sorry, that's too deep a thought for the Nerf Herder Council episode. So just forget that stuff. Scratch that. The one thing that I do love that they kind of keep harping on in this and in other stories, as much as I hate Thor: The Dark World, we did a ranking of MCU movies, and I think that was at the bottom or right near the bottom. This is all in the Infinity Saga, by the way, so it doesn't count anything Phase 4. Um, I will say that I did really like Frigga in that movie, though. They really actually drilled into the idea that Loki is actually concerned and compassionate and cares about his adopted mother. And and given that up to that point in the MCU, he hadn't really had much character development. He was just the shitty brother. It was nice to put some dimension on that actually and show that he actually does have some weaknesses for good purposes. You know, I'm surprised that that line right there didn't get more flack when it came out. I mean, to posit the idea that Loki is both uh, gender and sexual fluid is, well, it's pretty provoking in today's climate. This is great. Not the part of the moon crashing into the planet. That kind of sucks if you're on the planet, especially, or the moon for that matter. Um, but yeah, this part here, this is definitely more my style. I don't know if I'd be leading a sing along, but yes, I would definitely be drinking my way through this trip, not sleeping my way through this trip. I could do without this song, though. This reminds me a lot of the stuff they cut out of the director's cuts of Lord of the Rings. By the way, if anyone knows what language he was just singing, that's what the chat is for. Love it. Little callback to Thor right there. Come on, we've all wanted to do that, right? Polish off a beer and then just like smash the cup on the ground, be like, "Yep, there we go." The other thing I like about this scene is that so often in shows, and this is something that bugs me, like when people play drunk, they play drunk, and then as soon as they have to do something else, it's like instant sobriety. Hi, how you doing, everybody? And it's not the way, obviously, that it works. So I like that this actually persists a little bit. Like he doesn't just lose his buzz as soon as she wakes up and starts talking to him. Another thing I will give Marvel credit for is that most characters at least have like some sort of a unique individualized fighting style that suits their character. Now, the fact that they're all incredibly proficient fighters is, well, it's comic books, so I guess it has to be that way, but still. But I do wonder, especially with this Deadpool and Wolverine movie coming out, I wonder, what the combat's going to be like in that. Because there's one thing you get in Deadpool, it's extremely gory combat, and we've got a rated R Hugh Jackman led Wolverine. Those claws are going to be shredding so many buttholes. And yes, I'm just going straight to the butthole on that because it's a Ryan Reynolds Deadpool movie. There's going to be a lot of that going on. And they already released Xbox controllers, or was it PlayStation? I forget. Uh, but yeah, they released controllers that had their butt cheeks molded into the back of them, so you had to like feel their ass every time you were playing. Uh, Clearly, this is not going to be highbrow intellectual stuff. Sucks getting thrown off a train and right onto a green screen, you know? Was that the worst word we've ever heard in the MCU up to now? I don't know if they said anything as bad as asshole before this point. Minus the Deadpool movies, of course, but those didn't count until Fox was purchased by Disney. So at this point, she's all frustrated because of her, life of persecution. But our Loki lost his jacket. It was a really nice jacket, too. Man, life is hard. All right, come on, you two crazy kids. Give me something to react to. This isn't much of a watch along if you're just going to sit there in silence. Also, the other reason we're doing this watch along tonight is frankly because, uh, like I said, the show is usually myself and my brother doing discourse back and forth. And while he was all up about the Marvel Infinity Saga, he really did fall off after Endgame. So as I continued to watch all this stuff, he did not, which meant we couldn't bring it up on the show. So I've never been able to talk about these things before, which kind of a bummer. So that's why you get this. I'm still kind of amazed how far Loki is willing to go to even risk himself in this way to, like, jump into an apocalypse with the variant Loki, Sylvie in this case. I mean, there's not a whole lot to gain for him, so I'm not really sure how this creates any mischief or, anything that we can usually associate Loki with. Also, I know it's, total fiction here and everything, but they're really taking their time on this little stroll of theirs, given that, the planet is crashing into them, and that city is way the hell off in the distance. They might wanna pick up the pace a little bit. So, Kale, I keep going back to your comment about having not seen this show and going to see Deadpool and Wolverine and being afraid that you're gonna be left behind. I don't think so because I feel like Deadpool is such a popular franchise, and it pulls in so many people who aren't the normal Marvel fans, and viewership of the Multiverse Saga in general and critical reception of the Multiverse Saga has been down to where I feel like there's probably going to be a pretty good primer in the movie, and frankly, there should be. I mean, you can't ask people to go into a movie and then have critical bits of the plot or the structure of the narrative be residing in some other property somewhere else. It's like one of my biggest complaints about The Mandalorian on Disney Plus is that you had Grogu go off with Luke Skywalker at the end of season 2, and then at the beginning of season 3, they're just back together again. And there's no explanation given in the show. Reason being, there was that other show, The Book of Boba Fett, that occurred between seasons 2 and 3, and they dedicated a couple of episodes of that show to Din Djarin and Grogu, and they reunited. So I think that's a huge misstep. Anytime it's fun to have a connected universe and have shows and stories connect to one another, but to count on other stories to do your narrative heavy lifting for you, not fair to the audience. This again, so this is like the true apocalypse going on right now, and they're in the middle of a crowded city trying to get on a ship. Love the camera work, love the continuous shot. That's really cool. But also at the same time, you could tell by the tightness of the sets that this is obviously not a giant set that they're working with. This is a lot of camera trickery to keep the footprint small, um, and preferably digital. But overall, this really does just look fantastic. Now, I don't know what the hell power that was because I've never seen Loki levitate anything before. Narratively, though, it's just super handy the way that Loki just has whatever powers he needs at the time, apparently. Oh, shit. And there goes the arc. Optimus Prime and all the Autobots were on that thing too. Damn it. Sorry, for those who don't watch the Transformers, the ship that they crashed into, the volcano on Earth in, was called the Ark. Anyway, there we go. There is episode 3 of Loki down. We've got episode 4 to go. Now, I said this last night, I'll just restate it. I know we've got these very artsy, Easter egg laden sort of, fancy end credits here. One of them, I forget which one of them has, like, a post-credit scene too, but I'm not gonna sit here and watch credits the whole damn time just to see if there's a clip of something that might be a little bit of an Easter egg. So, we're just not gonna worry about that right now. Alright, so I've clicked off of the credits for episode 3 and queued up episode 4. I've got it paused at the beginning now. We're gonna take a little bit of a break here. So, thoughts on this season of television in general of Loki. Um, I think that of all the characters that could have carried a Disney Plus show, I feel like Loki was a perfect choice because he's I mean, he always starts shit. That's what his job is. He's the god of mischief. So you could put him in literally any situation and something interesting is going to come of it. And he's one of those characters that definitely stood alongside the Marvel movie characters, the heroes especially, just fine. He held his own as a villain in the Avengers, but he never quite got the screen time that, all the main cast did. So if you want to take someone who has the gravitas to make this, appointment viewing, so to speak, but not beat a dead horse because he's already had a trilogy of movies like Thor and Iron Man and Captain America had all had to this point. Perfect choice. And also because he is a trickster and he's not really a villain, he's more of an opportunist. You can have him be the main character without it being weird that he's not the villain. He can be villainous. He can be fun to watch stir the pot, but he's not actually evil. Because that would be too much of a twist, I think, too much of a turn of character to really make sense. But if you pluck him out of the Avengers timeline and then explain to him how basically he's got no choice but to go along with things, and being the trickster that he is, his tactics so far have been to go ahead and, I'll go along with this for a little while I'm busy plotting my revenge, and I'm going to stab you in the back as soon as I get a chance. It makes sense for the character. So I thought that was great. I think Tom Hiddleston in the role is fantastic. I hope that's not the last we've seen of him, actually. You got to imagine that whenever they do get around to culminating this fate or this saga, I guess, I don't even know if it is still a saga anymore with the way they've had to pivot so hard on the multiverse saga with abandoning the Kang character and whatnot. Because of Jonathan Major's real life legal troubles. If they do ever get to, like they were talking about in the announced Secret Wars as one of the Avengers movies, and I forget what the other Avengers movie that they announced was. Whatever it was very much hinting at a giant multiversal crossover where they could bring in like all the versions of these characters that have ever appeared on screen, or even some that hadn't yet to date. But, it was looking like we were going to get like all the Fox X-Men, and we were going to get like some variation of the Fantastic Four. And, we've already gotten, 3 different Spider-Men from all the different Spider-Man movies and stuff like that. So you had to imagine that like all the characters that we came to love from the Infinity Saga we're going to at least return for a cameo or maybe a little bit more in that Avengers movie. Hopefully some of that is still on the books, because I would love to see Tom Hiddleston do more of Loki, and I don't think they're going to do a third season of the show. So I don't know where Loki fits anymore in the larger Marvel storytelling universe at this point. They pretty much put him in a place where he can stay literally for infinity at the end of season 2 of the show. So no more spoilers on how that happens or where that place is or anything like that. But they have effectively and appropriately like tied his story up for the time being. But I do hope that that's not the last that we see of Tom Hiddleston in the role, because Loki's hilarious and awesome. So on that note, let's go ahead and queue up episode 4 of season 1, titled The Nexus Event. And I am going to hit play here alongside you in 3, 2, 1, and play. Got that Disney Plus logo again. Looks so good. Now we get our recap. I really think the saddest thing about this show, though, overall, is, I'm a huge fan of capes, and Loki had a glorious cape, and now he has no cape. So we've got our recap of the first 3 episodes. We already know what happened because, of course, you tuned in last night to part 1 of the watch along. And of course, you've been here for all of the first episodes of this part of the watch along. If you haven't, welcome. If you have, then thank you. Quick recap of this show while we're watching a recap of the Loki show. Nerf Herder Council is most times a bi-weekly on Wednesdays broadcast, mostly a Star Wars podcast, but we will talk Marvel and other franchises when we feel like it. It goes off at 8 p.m. Eastern. We can be watched on YouTube. We can be watched on our own website, which is nerfherdercouncil.com on the watch page. You can also tune in on our Facebook page. You can tune in on the Virtual Cantina Network Facebook page. You can also find us on Patreon at patreon.com/NHC podcast. You can sign up for free to be a member. We do have paid tiers as well, but even at the free level, you can sign up to be notified whenever we make posts there. That's our primary channel of communication. So anytime we're going to do any sort of additional content or extra shows like this watch along series here, that's where we're going to post about it first. And you can also go up to paid tiers to get early audio access to the podcast that we do every other week, our main flagship show. Usually we do the live stream of that on Wednesdays, like I said, and then we publish the audio version on the Sunday following. But for the lowly price of $1 a month, just $1, you can get early audio access and get that 2 days early on Friday instead. If you want to go up to the $3 tier, then we will give you a personal shout out on the show as well. And we've got other tiers for other bits of content planned coming up. We've already done a commentary track for The Phantom Menace. We're going to do future commentary tracks for the rest of the Skywalker saga. And all of that will be at the paid level on Patreon. So plenty of good stuff there for you without paying a single dime to us. But if you chip in $1 or $3, it gets even better, and we really appreciate the help. So that being said, we are now on to episode 4 of the Loki Watch Along. We've just seen Sylvie get abducted by the TVA as a little girl. Now we see how she escaped the TVA. They're just like frozen there watching her do it. Idiots. Just idiots. I watch wrestling and I'm calling these people stupid. They're worse than security at a wrestling event. Anyway, quick primer in case you did just tune into this watch along and had not actually seen the first few episodes of Loki previously. The Time Variance Authority is run by the Timekeepers, and they appear all over the halls of the as we just saw there. 3 dudes sitting in chairs in a mysterious cloudy room. They are the ones who determine the proper flow of time and ensure that it stays that way. Again, I love the scenes in the TVA just for the production value. I mean, never mind. Nope. I had a political joke. I'm not going to make it. Owen Wilson is a friggin' treasure. I'm so glad he's in this show. He works out so well in here. Wow, how? Ravona Renslayer. I gotta say, I think I would love to talk to somebody who has a full understanding of the comic storylines here, because I know there's a ton of stuff that they're pulling from here, and I'm not aware of those details, and I think I'm happier for it. It seems like a lot of times the changes that they make to the comic storylines for these Marvel shows and movies are not well received. People just want to see a comic book they know told in a you know motion picture format. I much prefer this idea that it's inspired by but not a direct clone of those stories. Because if you want those stories, they already exist. They're already there. There's no point in spending all the money to put it in front of cameras if you're just going to tell the exact story that's already been told. And not to get too meta here, but this is a multiverse story. I love that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is its own variant of the Marvel Comics universe. Same characters, same archetypes, some of the same story beats, but because of the different choices that they made narratively, things play out differently. John Godfrey, great to see you tonight, man. Yeah, they do simplify it a lot, and they have to. If you're trying to tell a self-contained story in 2.5 hours, you don't have years worth of static panels with text to explain everything. Now, I will admit, guys, while I do I've seen this show before a few times, I don't actually recall it in great detail. Like this episode, I don't know specifically where it's going at this point. I forgot that they didn't actually get off the planet in the last episode and onto something else. I don't actually remember how they get off this planet now. They're just hopping from apocalypse to apocalypse here, and I haven't seen them like go inside at all. Do you think like where do they pee? Sorry, maybe that's the problem with being, in my middle age now, but that's always like top of mind is like where's a bathroom in case I have to pee. So I always wonder about that with shows. See, so there's that bit about branching timelines there. That's going to come into play in Deadpool and Wolverine for sure. If that final trailer for Deadpool and Wolverine is anything to go by, it seems like the other required viewing for Deadpool 3 is definitely if not all of, the final, standalone Wolverine movie, Logan, um, which I hope I'm wrong because I haven't actually seen it, and I don't have time before Thursday night to give it a watch. So, I hope it's not much, but there's so many clips in that final Deadpool and Wolverine trailer, that are taken from that movie that I think you kinda gotta know what's going on there if you're gonna make sense or at least, like, get the full impact of what this Deadpool and Wolverine movie is gonna be implying. It seems like it's very Wolverine heavy, actually. It's truly a team up and not like Deadpool with some Hugh Jackman cameos. So they're sitting here waiting to die, but the power of love is going to save them. Aw, it's so adorable. So she's all pissed off now that she's back in the TVA, but she was just sitting there waiting to die instead. I think they got it better in the TVA than if they had just died on a purple rock. But you gotta have those, like, pointless thrashings going on just to make it seem like you're trying to resist. They love that asshole word. They're really trying to, like, push it with this show, I noticed. Ooh, angry red door. Do love this cameo, though. Now I remember what's going on. This is, I actually of the early Marvel movies, Thor was I think for me was, like, the most pleasant surprise. My brother loves Captain America. I give more credit to Thor. I really enjoyed that movie, and I loved The Warriors 3. Uh, it really bummed me out that they didn't have much to do in the second one and just got straight up offed to get those characters out of the way in Ragnarok. Like, I could definitely go for more Asgard-based stories, but knowing that they just, go out like bitches to Hela, it's a bummer. Like, Sif's a badass. Who doesn't wanna see more of that character? Nice. That's it. Lady Sif is awesome. Plus, I love the way as Guardians shake hands. I love that like super meaty. Like they don't shake hands; they shake like forearms. Like they clasp it up. I know, cheesy little details. I'm a fanboy in all the stupidest ways. Oh wow, we've got Owen Wilson back again. How do you trust any character named Renslayer? There's just nothing about that name that says I am the good guy. I love all the little character drops they just gave there. Some of those projects. I'm sure that wasn't just an arbitrary list. I'm sure they purposely threw in stuff that we'd heard of before and some stuff that we hadn't. Like they dropped in vampires right there, and they had to be planning. Like I would say at this point, they at least had pre-production ideas for resurrecting Blade as a character in the MCU and werewolves, and you had Werewolf by Night. So I love the idea that they were actually. It only became an Easter egg because of future projects. Yeah. Yeah, John, I know Blade keeps getting pushed back and it's a bummer. I hope that now that COVID's done and whatever happened with Kang in the Multiverse Saga it has been dealt with, that hopefully by now they've got a new slate planned out and they can actually stick to it. I mean, the boys even made fun of that this season. Sorry, spoilers for season 4 of the boys, but they had their own version of D23, the famous annual Disney convention called V52, and they laid out phases 8 through 19 of the cinematic universe. I think we're going to have to talk about the boys on the show sometime because that show is just too damn good. Oh, it's so good. Also, going back to that topic of Blade real fast there, John. I wonder if maybe one of the other reasons why Blade got pushed back is because it was hinted at in the Eternals, and you talk about a movie that is just a turd from start to finish. Like everything wrong with current MCU, it's all on display in that movie. Um, I'm actually kind of excited for Brave New World coming up because they finally acknowledge that there's a fucking stone Goliath sticking out of the Indian Ocean. Like when you got a giant head and hand just poking out of the Indian Ocean so large that it's visible from space, you'd think that would have come up by now, given that Eternals came out like 3 or 4 years ago at this point. See, damn it. Now you got me curious. Now I'm trying to remember when the hell the Eternals came out. 2021. Okay. Yeah, they've had over 2 years, going on 3 now, to mention anything about the giant alien baby that hatched out of the ocean. Clearly, they knew that they maybe shouldn't pursue that one. That was pretty fucking dumb. Why is Loki such a terrible liar in this show when he's so good in other movies? Agent Mobius with the good old line of BS. He's out tricking the trickster. I do love this thing where like the only person that Loki can truly fall in love with is himself. Right now, Agent Mobius. Wow. Oh, I didn't know Owen Wilson was left-handed. Preach, brother. What does that even mean? Boxing your ears. It's one of those old timey phrases. I have no idea. Love it. What a surprise. The all seeing, all knowing agency is corrupt. Ooh. Loki with the last word. That's B-15, right? Pretty sure that's B-15. I want some of these posters. I said it last time. I'll say it again. I want some of these posters. I don't know where I would put them or why I need them, but I don't know. Like, I got some walls around here. I got some empty space. if you want to live. Yeah, so just to make sure we're all synced up on the time code, I have got 25:05 and counting down in this episode right now. We just joined Ravona Renslayer in her office. She just turned the papers around for Agent Mobius. Wow, to sign the papers. John, yeah, I know boxing ears involves like punching someone in the head, but what what is boxing ears? They literally mean like boxing like the sport, except you're punching at their ears instead of their head? Yeah, clearly some energy going on here. Uh-oh, Mobius is starting to ask questions. Watch out. I really hope that he shows up in Deadpool and Wolverine. I don't know if he will. Don't know if he will because it seems like we've got another guy who's kind of like the lead TVA agent, but we'll see. Discuss Metal Joe. Good to see you, man. Late as usual, or your usual time. So we'll just call it punctual. Yeah. Timestamps. Where are we at? Current timestamp is 22:50 and counting down from there. The stupid Disney Plus player doesn't tell you how much is elapsed. It only tells you how much is remaining. By the way, this is the fourth episode we're watching, Joe, not the third. You already missed a whole episode. I guess that's one of the advantages of casting like big name people in these Disney Plus shows is if you want those characters to translate over to the movies, you're already dealing with people who've worked in movies before. So it's not like a big deal to get them to do that. Much bigger deal to have movie caliber actors like Owen Wilson coming down and doing a Disney Plus show. So I think that's kind of brilliant the way they kind of future proofed it. If they wanted to tell stories with these people or not, then they've got the actors already lined up that are used to that kind of production. I'm also very excited. Like I said, I love the production value of this show overall. I love the design of the TVA. I'm curious to see how it's going to look with a movie budget behind it. That's always one of the like little thrills, right? Like I'm a lover of all things nerdy and sci-fi, so I got to admit, huge Star Trek fan, and that was one of the coolest thrills of when Star Trek started making movies. Was especially compared to the only thing they had, which was the original series in syndication. Um, Seeing the production value blow up to movie budget proportions was just awesome. So I can't wait to see what the TVA looks like with the full might of a Disney Marvel production film budget behind it. What do you think they're drinking? Like, I have so many questions about the city that they exist in there. I know it's got a name and a whole backstory in the comics and whatnot, but it doesn't, there's no trees or anything like that. It just looks like a a Fifth Element urban cityscape. Do you think they just like pop into realities wherever they need stuff from and like just steal basically? Like, nah, we don't need a Target or a Walmart here. I'm just gonna, pop over to that other reality and just go to theirs instead. It is weird that they had to go all the way over into this rainstorm slash apocalypse to have this conversation. I guess the need for secrecy is kind of important, but still. Well, get the hell away from the apocalypse first. Let's see what Mobius is going to be doing with this temp pad. Oh, that's not a temp pad. That's an Intellivision controller. I had one of those growing up. I know what that is. Where's that a Game and Watch? Oh, it's got a full video screen. Never mind. Sorry. It's Nintendo DS, obviously. Oh. I love that line. You tell me to shut up. You hear that? Power of love can conquer the multiverse. Quick timestamp check in for everybody watching along here. We are in episode 4, the Nexus event of season 1 of Loki, and we are at 33:22 and counting. We got about 16 minutes and change left in the episode, and I would guess probably about 7 or 8 minutes of that are credits if this is the typical format. So as Owen Wilson would say, shit's about to go down. Do iPhone users have this problem? I'm not familiar enough with well, there goes Agent Mobius. My biggest question, if I was in the situation, would be, what was my Nexus event? Like, where did I go off the timeline? What was I not supposed to do? By the way, proof that Loki doesn't learn. He just spent untold amounts of time in a time loop getting kicked in the balls by Sif. He hasn't tried to kick anybody in the balls since then. I mean, come on. B15, damn it. That's like one of the most important vitamins. Son of a bitch. Now my Centrum will never be complete. Her shoes look comfy, at least. Nice little bit of continuity there. Her hair is still wet. Why don't they just beat the hell out of her? It's 2-on-1. There you go. See? She's raising some good points. Ooh, stone cold. It's like when you send that desperate text in the wee hours of the night to an ex and you get like no response. Just the absolute cold shoulder treatment. Like, oh, I think about you all the time. And then you find out the truth is they don't think about you at all. Oh, shit's about to go down. Also, Loki's can just like invent knives and daggers. Don't need to toss him one, but unless you're thinking about them. It's got to be so hard writing this stuff. I mean, there's only so many different fights you can choreograph before they all start blending together a little bit. It is very handy for the censors too. The blood doesn't seem to exist in the TVA. Here we go. Here we go. I love how the timekeepers are just sitting there like, all right, well, we'll watch it, I guess. Love it. Okay, I'll be honest. When the show first came out and I saw that for the first time, that was very much an oh shit kind of moment. Yeah, so the TVA is basically run by Chuck E. Cheese robots. It's Five Nights at Freddy's. There we go. That's the question. Not not the best timing here, Loki. You have something in your teeth. Oh, snap. And there we go. There is the fourth episode of Loki season 1 in the books. We got 2 episodes remaining, and we will be revisiting those tomorrow night on the third and final watch along of Loki season 1. Fair warning, it will be a later stream tomorrow night. I'm going to say around 10 p.m. Eastern. I don't have a guarantee on that, to be totally honest. I'm going to a concert. So when I get home from that, then I'll go on and watch some Loki with y'all. But that's fine because the viewership seems to have been going up in the last hour anyway. So y'all are night owls. Fine by me. I am too. But those are the first 4 episodes of Loki season 1 in the books on this watch along, leading up to the release of Deadpool and Wolverine on Thursday. So if you didn't hear the preamble at the beginning of the show or didn't tune in last night, this is the Nerf Herder Council. We do a bi-weekly show every other Wednesday, I should say, at 8 p.m. Eastern time here on all the platforms. So we've got our Twitch channel, we've got our YouTube channel, we've got our Facebook page. We're also on the Virtual Cantina Network on Facebook, and we are also streaming live to our Patreon page at patreon.com/NHC podcast. We are going to be talking Deadpool and Wolverine and Deadpool 1 and 2 on our next show, which is next Wednesday, July 31st. So be sure you tune in for that. If you're watching on YouTube, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button and click on that notification bell once you do to be notified whenever we're going live. Our guaranteed shows are every other Wednesday at 8 p.m., but we do some other content like these watch alongs from time to time. We might be doing some other stuff coming up here in the future as well. We've done Lego streams in the past. We've done Star Trek drinking games. We've done Star Wars Cards Against Humanity, anything we feel like doing. So you're guaranteed at least every other Wednesday, you're going to get the Nerf Herder Council. You're going to get some content on other days of the week. Who knows? It all depends on what we feel like, but we will be posting updates for any sort of scheduled shows or unscheduled shows at patreon.com/NHC podcast. Totally free to join us on there. You don't have to pay any money. If you do, we do have some perks for you. At $1 a month, you can get the audio version of our bi-weekly show 2 days early. So instead of waiting until the Sunday following our live stream, you can get it on the Friday following our live stream. And if you pay us $2 more per month for a total of $3 whole, you not only get the early audio access, but you also get access to commentary tracks. We've already published one for the Phantom Menace. We're going to be continuing on in episodic order through the Skywalker saga. And you also get shout outs by name at the end of our main flagship shows. So thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. We will be back tomorrow night. Like I said, I'm going to try to be on by 10 p.m. Eastern, but I don't know for sure based on whenever the concert wraps up and I can get home and logged on. So we will be posting about that. That's all the more reason to be tied into our socials and to our Patreon page, because as soon as that show has a set time, I will notify on all those platforms. So make sure you join us on there. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you tomorrow night for the end of Loki Season 1.